All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of We Need to Talk. This is episode 410. So shout out to everybody who has been viewing, everybody who's been a part of it, everybody who's been supporting. Make sure to share the broadcast. Make sure you like the broadcast. We are now on YouTube. So, make sure you guys are sharing it, letting people know what's going on, letting people know about the new home. And also, shout out to everybody who's been a part of my Patreon coaching platform. If you are interested in one-on-one coaching in the mental health realm, in the realm of purpose, dating and relationships, and or physical health, be sure to visit Patreon, www.patreon.com/happinessdecoded101, and it's also at the bottom of the screen. Now we have a special guest for today's broadcast. She is a doctor working in cancer research, also a part of outreach efforts for Haitian children as well, and a Haitian queen as well. So we have none other than Dr. Fabienne. How are you doing
I
today?
am doing great. I am doing great. I am excited to be here. Thank you for letting me come on such an amazing platform. Like I've been watching you and I'm like, yeah, this is the type of person I need to have conversations with. So I'm excited. I am.
I appreciate that. I
Yeah.
appreciate that a lot for sure. So I'm excited as well. So we're gonna get right into it. But
Okay.
before we do, in your own words, let the people know what you are a doctor of, what you focus on as of currently.
Wonderful. So I graduated medical school. I did go to the Caribbean. Since I've been back, I graduated in 2015. So I've just kind of been dabbling and trying to get into residency. And so, if anyone knows, residency is not always promised. It's something that requires you to actually finish medical school, take your board exams. And when you get into residency, that's when you start to specialize. So it's been a kind of a rough road, but one of the things that I did embark on was research. Research is obviously another aspect. I think everyone has actually been introduced to research, especially with this COVID thing. Everyone's wondering, when should I take the vaccine? How has the research been conducted? And that's what I've been working with. I've been working with lung cancer. And so
Okay.
currently I work at Robert H. Lurie Cancer Center, which is at Northwestern University, which is downtown Chicago. And
Mhm.
we work with clinical trials helping those who do have cancer, especially lung cancer, actually find these drugs that they're using to actually test on them. Mind you, people who are in these trials are actually at their end. In other words, they have what we call a standard of care, which is like FDA approved. We know this drug works, but sometimes you get to a point when those drugs don't work. So anything that's in clinical trials is what now patients are going towards. So I've been lucky enough to actually work with some amazing physicians and treating a lot of patients who need it all around the world pretty much. So yeah.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing work. And like you said, not only just here, but also overseas in the Caribbean
Yes.
as well.
Mm-hmm.
And especially right now because of the fact that okay, when you mention the lungs, we know COVID has an attachment and an effect on the respiratory system as well.
Yes,
So
it
I'm
does.
sure your texts inbox, everything's flooded with people questions,
Yes.
like you mentioned, just people just trying to figure this whole thing out because
Right.
it's been going on for just over a year now. It's really hard to believe that it's been that long. It
It's been a
feels
year.
shorter
Yeah,
and
it's
like a I don't know. What do you think?
drastic change, like just a drastic change. I was telling you before, I was living in Baltimore, and
Mm,
I was working at the hospital there, University of Maryland. And
yeah.
when we heard about COVID, I literally sat in a room with everyone, and they said, "Yeah, this is nothing. It's like the flu. We'll be out of work for 2 weeks." And then it just kept going. And then it got to the point that we're like, well, we still have patients who need to be treated. There are patients who need to be seen. And I remember, I'm a frontline worker, so I was still going to work, and then I got sick. And I honestly have to tell you, that was probably the first time I had to sit back and go, is this bad? Like, am I okay? Because I was by myself. I didn't have any family in Baltimore, and I
Gotcha.
had to really try to, just assess myself. And I remember calling the doctor's office, and she said, well, it does sound like you have COVID, and there's no cure, so there's no point of you coming in. And I'm like, you're gonna leave me here in this apartment by myself?
Right.
Okay. And I mean, it's scary, and I can only imagine those who have had COVID and then coming to the point that it's been a year, we're wearing masks. I mean,
Mhm.
no one is familiar with this process. We can't look at our parents and go, well, what did you guys do? How do we deal with this? We don't have that. We are all leading, we're the blind leading the blind pretty much. And no one can really give us an answer, which is why you look at the media, you look at newspapers, you're looking at all these like conspiracies, and you don't know. And I think that's the part that really scares us. And so, yeah, it hit hard. And just listening the other day to the CDC saying, if you're fully vaccinated, you don't need a mask anymore indoors. It's like, is it? Are you sure? Do you know for a fact? Are you sure
Right.
though? Like, I went to Traders the other day, and I'm like, do I have to wear this? But I'm like, I'm wearing this mask. I don't know. So it's scary, but it's something that should really be, on your part, something that you should look into, something that you should read about, something that you should just always ask questions. So, no matter how far I've gotten in my medical career, being an advocate to anybody, especially the layperson, I can only imagine. I know medicine, I think I'm pretty well versed, but for somebody who's not, I mean, what do you do? What do you think about? You were able to tell me, it's a respiratory thing, it affects the lungs, but I don't think people know about certain things about the lung and how it feels not to be able to breathe and what does that mean, and how serious it could be. So definitely a game changer, especially a challenge to the medical field. So I have to say we're all in this together at least.
For sure. For sure. No. And like you mentioned, somebody like the layperson maybe just inundated with a lot of information and not really being able to make sense of it, and maybe
Of
not having
course.
a lot of faith in the process, because
Right.
one day, because I remember just different times. One day, okay, we're doing this. Okay, it's locked down. It's open. It's a mask. It's a half a mask. It's a okay. Wear a hazmat suit. Okay, you can wear
Right.
shorts, but not after 10 p.m. It's like, all right, all right, all right.
It's
It's
true. Yes.
and then
You know?
so when just in human nature, if you have a friend who they're coming, they're not coming, they can help you, they can't help you, you start to be like, well, what can I believe from
Right.
this? And then when just when people get inundated with too much information, or too much competing information,
Right.
there's a freeze that happens where it's like,
Yes.
well, it's an overload of incongruent info, so I'm just gonna stop. And like you mentioned,
Right.
and I totally agree, for people to take it into their own hands, and to be able to make sense, or do their own personal research and things like that, especially you being somebody who's knee deep in research on a different level. But I think the
Right.
average person can only benefit from getting as much information as possible in order to, like you said, make an informed decision.
Right.
Because I do agree, we don't have a reference point,
Right.
to say, okay, remember last time we did this, so let's just suit up and like
Right.
this isn't like a hot summer. You know how, like,
Right.
okay, they'll say this summer, it's we had 105
Right.
day, and the
Right.
last time we had it was 1936, so
Right.
everybody just stay indoors, hydrate. It's a
Yes.
heat warning, but this isn't. We don't have any of
We
those
don't have
dates for this.
that.
We don't have the
Exactly. There are
videos.
no guidelines on this. We are confused. Nobody knows. And doing your research does not necessarily mean being on the internet all the time. Talk to people.
Mm,
If there's a healthcare professional or nurse, anybody, talk to people. Listen to what they have to say. Like, what have you been hearing? And that's when you have to come to your own conclusion as to what's the best for you. Because at the end of the day, that's exactly how everyone has been acting. What is the best for me? Should I be wearing a mask? Should I not be wearing a mask? Should my 2-year-old child wear a mask? These are the
mm.
kind of things that you should come up with. And, look at your surroundings. What are you worried about? If you have any comorbidities, meaning you've got a hypertension, you've got asthma, think of those things, and you do what's best for you. So it's difficult, but yeah, it's out there. It's real.
Right, and the fact that even though we don't have a tangible reference point to this level of a pandemic, etc., there
Right.
are reference points, so to speak, when it comes
Right.
to human health, facts about human function and things like that, and that can be accessed. And
Right.
just in the vein of reference points, I wanna take us back a little bit to
Hmm.
your reference points of becoming a future doctor. Right now,
Right.
I'm somebody who loves to delve into purpose,
Hmm.
and I do believe that there are inklings or parts of our childhood upbringing, the environment we grew up in, the location we grew up in, that all affect our unique way of being, skill set, interests, all of that eventually form where we can go. Not everybody is in their purpose, and that's
Right.
one thing that I try to help people through coaching, to bring it out and figure it out. So my question would be, take us through kind of Fabienne as 5, 6, 7 year old, just kind of running around recess,
Right.
in school. What subjects, what things would you say would be the ties that would bring us to where you are right now professionally?
Um, it's funny because you always bring things back to where how you were brought up, and
Mm-hmm.
my parents are both Haitian. My mom and dad were both born in Haiti. My grandparents, and I'm first generation born, and I have to honestly say I could remember that my grandmother would uh, work as a cleaning woman, and she had her own business. And she'd come home tired, and me and my mom and my dad would go visit my grandmother, and she would take cabbage. Okay, this is just like holistic type thing, but she would take cabbage, soak it in water, and she would put it around her ankles because she had swelling and whatnot. And I used to be like, why is she doing that? And there were other things, when I was sick, there was like a remedy my mom would rub on my chest, and I started to see how they used to take care of each other. In other words, when they're sick and things like that. And that's when my grandmother used to explain to me that back in Haiti, financially, economically, there was nothing around. So
Mm-hmm.
they had to figure out how to help each other. And so as I grew up, one of the things that happened was my grandfather had a stroke.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one thing about medicine, and we talked about this in terms of lay people, when you know nothing about something, you will turn to anybody for help. And healthcare is probably the one thing that can debilitate anybody. And I saw how my grandfather had a stroke. I saw how my grandmother was hurting. And I saw how them even going to the doctor, they were lost. They didn't know exactly why were they taking this medication? Why was this test result? And then you go into the doctor's office, and let's how many times have you walked into a doctor's office and they're telling you all these terms? You have high blood pressure, you have diabetes, and then you're this, that. No one knows what exactly they're talking about. And it gets frustrating. And it like pains me to see that people are in such a debacle that they can't even get themselves out of it, or they are looking for someone to like help. And so when I decided to go into healthcare, it was because I wanted to be that advocate. I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
learn about, and it became easy to me. It is in my nature that I care, that I'm
Yeah.
always there to like want to help and explain things. And even in my job today, patients come in, they have lung cancer. You imagine telling a patient that cough that you've been having for the last 6 months, that's cancer.
Mm.
That is absolutely not what you came in to find out. And when you find that out, I mean, you're lost. And so to be able to sit down with somebody and to actually, even if I have to take out a piece of paper, draw it out, explain it, use a analogy. I always say I hate dealing with cars. I would
Yeah.
wish that somebody would be truthful enough when something's wrong with my car to explain it. And that's where it all began. It began with my family. It began watching how my grandfather started to deteriorate. It even started where I saw how my grandmother would teach me how to take care of my grandfather.
Mm-hmm.
Things that he needed to eat, things that his medication. I remember I saw the physical therapist helping him walk. When she would leave, I would help my grandfather. I was only in high school, not even high school, junior high, holding a belt around
Mm-hmm.
his, waist and helping him down the stairs, up the stairs. I mean, it was amazing. And the thing is that you don't realize what your body can do. Yes, your body can get, COVID and whatnot, but there's ways to fight certain things. I mean, I can't really speak on COVID not much, but imagine when you have a cold. There's reasons why they tell you to take certain medications or, you know, exercise or drink water, orange juice, fluids, keep your energy up. There's reasons why. And so if you can learn how to fight, allow to your body to fight and learn about those, that's where what pleases me. And that's why I went into healthcare because I knew it was easy for me. I learned it and I love the way the body works. And being able to be that bridge is where it started. So, you know, it's nice to know that, I'll have an aunt who'll call me. She doesn't speak English and she'll tell me, "Oh, I'm going to the doctor. Can you be on the phone?" I mean, I won't tell you how many times I've been on the phone while they're in New York or Boston and I'm talking to the doctor trying to, and they're always like, "My niece, she's a doctor. She'll be able to tell you everything." And
Right,
a feel, it's a
right.
feel good type
She's
of
got it.
thing. She's got this. You just
Mhm.
talk to her. You don't need to tell me anything. And it's an amazing feeling. And that's why I went into medicine. I mean, nothing else was more challenging. Nothing was more intriguing than what I do now. So
That's amazing stuff. And a couple points I want to hit on too. Like,
please.
I always say, if we're following our purpose, and a lot of times I notice that we either become who we needed or we become who a loved one needed.
Yes.
Eventually, once we get into the once we become adults and get into our stride and find that purpose, right?
Right.
We become the person that we needed growing up, or the person that one of our
Person.
close family, yeah, needed coming up. And I think you've definitely exemplified that. And the story about just the cabbage and things like that,
Yeah.
just those natural remedies. Like, if anybody here is listening, Haiti has a rich history when it
Very
comes to
rich.
especially not only just independence and all of those great stories, but you know living, like taking from the earth and
Yes.
utilizing God's gifts of herbs and
Yes.
concoctions and things like
Yes.
that, to remedy, as a remedy, but also in preventative means as well, and things like that.
Right.
So it's almost like a convergence of that, and then sort of the Western model that your family kind of had to come to grips with. Those two, that meeting between, and
Yeah.
I guess in my mind, one thing that I would want to know is that how does that exist in your head? Because I guess right now you would be part of the Western model, but do you have like naturopathic side, or how do you kind of do you mesh the two? What's your philosophy just on medications versus natural remedies?
Right. I honestly truly do believe that the holistic side does play a big, huge, vital role in
Mm-hmm.
health. Whenever we see patients in our clinics right now, it's not just about, oh, here's what kind of chemo you need and whatnot, but we always emphasize your diet. We always emphasize, just things like taking a walk, getting your steps in. I mean, that doesn't sound like a lot, but your body needs that type of energy. So I definitely say that I take with me what my parents and my family have taught me and what I've learned and seen. Um, you know, I went to Haiti a couple times because my parents are part of an organization called CHAI. It's Concerned Haitian Americans of Illinois. And
Okay.
I, like you said, there's been a lot of turmoil in Haiti. And so I was never able to go when I was a child. But the first time I went was when I was a second year medical student.
Mm-hmm.
And to see patients, we would probably treat about 1,000 patients every time we went. We went for 10 days. And to know that I would meet people who had high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, but they were still going to work every day. They were
Mm,
still taking care of their families. And I would be just like, how? What are you doing? And, they would tell me, well, it's this tea that I'm drinking that is helping me, get through the day. And that's just another way of saying you're hydrating yourself. Or
yeah.
they would tell me that there's a paste that we're making and that we rub on our skin. It's only because it's got some type of either antipyretic to bring your temperature down or some type of pain medicine that's in there that they found. So it's like these things exist. This is how medicine was developed. We're just going
Yeah.
back to how we found it. So definitely, whenever I hear patients, and I mean, obviously, there's always that thin line. And when I say thin line, it's always there's a remedy that could often interact with the drug that they're on. But we look into those things. I think that's one of the biggest part of my job. Whenever a patient comes in and they're being told that, unfortunately, you have certain cancer and this is the drug treatment, I look at all their drugs. I look at everything that they're on. I look at their history. If I have a patient who's of Asian descent or African descent, I know that some of that will play a role. I know there's holistic type of, remedies that they might consider. I look into that and I ask them, what is it that you would do at home? What kind of remedies would you consider and how can that fit in? Because that's something that they're used to. And it's not only because it's in their head, it actually does work. It does.
Yeah.
So definitely I combine the two. Definitely. Obviously one outweighs the other, especially because of how serious certain cancers can be and certain illnesses. But definitely that's something that I would always consider, only because it's in me and I've seen it. I've seen how it works. I've seen how people have taken history. Because when we didn't have medicine, what did we do? This is what they were doing. They were finding
Mhm.
trees, they were finding roots, they were building, they were boiling something up and
Right.
making themselves better. So yes, I'm all down for that. Exactly.
There you go. There you go. My
Yeah.
dad would say that the castor oil.
You
when you just think
know?
about that's the I used to hear that coming up, man. Like just that seems like a staple just in
Can I
every
just tell you,
Black
I have a
American.
bottle. I have a bottle in my house. My
Do
sister
you?
has a bottle. Oh, and you rub it, and it's like I remember they used to just like heat it up in their hands and rub it on your chest, and it was like
Mhm.
I swear, I don't know what it is, but next day, I was like, I had the castor oil and I'm good. You stink all night, but
That's
I was good. But it's fun. Yep.
I heard those.
I
So
can't
I was
believe you know
always
that.
hearing those stories about how they got rubbed up right
Yes.
here.
All the back, you'd be like, I'm supposed to sleep like this. Oh my gosh. But it worked. And I'm not gonna lie, I have a bottle at home. Like, yeah, if I have a cold, I'm putting that. I mean, when COVID hit, I had to tell my aunts, like, I don't think this is gonna work for that, but you can try. But you
Hmm.
know, So, but that's cool. Yeah, definitely.
Man,
So
that's hilarious.
that's funny.
But so I absorb and receive the fact that a lot of love comes from this. A lot of love emanates
Yeah,
from you when it comes to the origins, your original patients, right? When it comes to
right.
your family, helping to just being a lending a helping hand to support them
Definitely.
through medical ailments. And so it being this purpose and this space that you're in now being born out of love, right?
Right, right,
um and continuing to be your love and care for your current patients and
right,
clients or people that you work with,
right.
either overseas or over here.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
so my next question would be, how has your romantic love experience been? You know,
Ah,
um, just and however you would like to answer that, whatever time period you would want to start with. I normally like to look at sort of just the trajectory, right?
okay,
Because again, I'm I do the dating and relationship coaching, so I like to analyze and kind of focus on particular patterns. And I do know that, and not to say this is you or anything like that, but I do know in some of the helping professions there can be overlap. So there can be sometimes an energy that you carry of
right.
this nourishing, nurturing, helping, caring individual that attracts certain types of people who benefit largely from it, but that don't necessarily benefit us. You know what I'm saying? So
Oh,
um
Marcus, you're hitting it on the point. Oh,
I'm already
okay.
there.
Yes, you are. But okay, I
Okay.
got. I mean, I understand it. It is true. You know, when you have such a care for people, it does it just comes out. It's not it's unselfish. It is always present at all times. And so, in medicine, I think other people will say, no matter if you're a doctor, nurse, any type of healthcare professional, um, your life is busy. It's funny because I always say to my parents, medicine doesn't sleep. It could be
Hmm.
Saturday, it could be Sunday, it could be overnight. It does not sleep. It's something that requires a lot of attention. And so, finding someone who actually has a respect for that, has an appreciation for what you are doing can be difficult. It can be, especially because it kind of takes a front seat. And sometimes you have to kind of consciously tell yourself to take a day off, to just, kind of sit back and as I am learning within the last couple of years, self-care. Self-care is a
Hmm.
big thing. And self-care doesn't just mean I need a massage. Self-care is what you desire. I've been single for probably about 2 years now. And so, initially when I was in a relationship, my work did kind of, interrupt that. I spent a lot of time at home. I remember he used to tell me, your computer is always in front of you. It's always in front of you. And I'm like, but there are people out there that like need that type of attention. And so then, it also kind of threw me off because I realized somebody else needed my attention, and then I had to like kind of share that. So if anything, I always feel that I'm broken into pieces to kind of cover everything because I'm a people pleaser. Like I said, I want to be there for people whenever they need, but in all honesty, it is very well possible to be in a relationship and to actually kind of, separate yourself because although there are people that you will meet in your life, especially that are sick, that are debilitated, that are in need, you cannot be that selfless and not take care of your own self and not see what you need and what you should be doing for yourself. And it takes time. I mean, I think that I had to learn that. And it's interesting when you said, your purpose, your purpose for yourself and your purpose for others. And honestly, it doesn't bother me that I actually went into medicine. Like I said, I love it. One thing I think people don't know is that when you go into medicine, you can graduate from medical school, you can have an MD, but you can't practice in the United States until you actually become a resident. So,
Hmm.
with that being said, I've had that difficulty trying to get into residency, but it still gives me purpose knowing that I'm there for people and that I can the little that I know can go a long way. So, I've everything is a learning curve, everything, you go through, but definitely I think my biggest challenge is I guess being able to talk to people without talking about healthcare, without talking about medicine. Someone who's not going to be like, "So how's your day?" And I'm talking about, everything that they're like, I really don't know what that means. I really feel bad for that person. But, finding someone who's your like. I think a lot of people in healthcare, I know when I started, I was like, I never want to marry a doctor. I don't want to
Hmm.
be that like I know that's like a bad thing, but it was like, you imagine two people that are the same field that talk about the same thing, competing in what kind of patients they had that are more sick. And I'm like, no, I want something outside of that. And I still kind of have that in my head, but it's the people who are you're familiar with. So
Yeah.
I don't know, it's not that hard, but I can only understand how many people try to marry outside or date outside of the healthcare because there's just a link that is always there that you're not going to find with other people. I mean, it consumes you. I mean, I can only imagine, what you do. You'd like to meet someone who'd probably, can have some type of familiarity. You're looking for that same energy. You're looking for that learning from somebody else. Um, but yeah, it's not horrible. Although I am single, but
Right.
yeah, I'm learning to balance it out, learning to enjoy things more and go out with friends and meet new people. Like we said, we met on a happy hour type thing. We would have never met. And unfortunately, you live in Maryland, and I lived there, and I moved away in August. So that means we
Hmm.
were probably in the same area, but we would have never met. So this
Right.
is
Exactly. Exactly.
exactly. So yeah, definitely.
And shout out to Lloyd too for his
Yeah,
his
right? Exactly.
his
For
little
the
event,
intro.
little social networking type of thing. So,
Yes, yes. I have to say thanks to that.
but I think that I guess and I get where you're coming from. When it
Right.
comes to you know uh, it being a toss up, right? Because I
It
asked
is.
this question. I don't even. We're on episode 410. I have no idea what episode I talked about this on, but
Right.
I remember discussing, just asking just people, just in the audience, like, what do you want as far as your partner's profession? Do you want somebody who's in your same field, or do you want to explore something different to where the
Right.
conversation is rich in teaching each other as opposed to connecting
Yes.
on
Yes.
like-mindedness and like-minded material? And then
Yes.
so for me, it's I don't know. I
You
haven't really
know?
settled on that. I guess I gotta kind of experience more people and see how it feels. I think there has to be a centerpiece of connectivity though.
Yes. Yes.
And
Definitely.
there's a lot of things I'm interested in. So I think even if the person I end up with is not in the coaching mental health realm,
Right.
there's so much more that we can bond and connect on. But
Right.
I think with, and it's one thing you mentioned too, just having, not being able to really focus on yourself or maybe your mate and things like that. And I think that one thing that I always look for in anything that's wrong is where's the fear and where's the imbalance, right? Those are,
Okay.
that's like my go-to common denominator when anything, especially in relationship dating, stuff like that, cycles, dating, toxic cycle, stuff like that, um or just even mental health stuff, or anything that
Right.
comes up as an issue. I always look for, okay, what is there any imbalance around, and is there any fear around that's putting
Yeah.
us in that negative space, right?
Yeah.
And you know imbalance happens, especially when you are dedicated to your purpose, your craft. It's interesting to you. It
Right.
it comes out of you naturally in conversation, whether you change the subject to it or not, like whether it's on the table or not. It's something that's, it's constantly in rotation. It's something that
Right.
um and then on top of that, it can be even so, you can be so hyper focused that you kind of forget yourself in the process. And then you have to remember that, because again, purpose can be very intoxicating. I want people to know that as well. Like sometimes you don't even realize you're working really, because you love it so much, and you have to almost create borders and boundaries to detach yourself, to, so that you can kind of, you know, in essence, take care of yourself, because of the fact
Right.
it's very interesting that somebody in the medical, when you think of the medical field and stuff like that, but you don't want to be a patient. You don't want to run yourself into the ground and then have to take care of yourself and bring yourself
Exactly.
back.
Because we're
You
the
know what I
worst
mean?
patients already. We're the worst patients. So
Oh man.
therefore,
Right.
not a good patient at all. So yes, I mean it is a difficult thing. But it's like everything is a gray area. No one
Yeah.
actually knows what you are willing to do, what you're not willing to do. Your purpose. Like I honestly say, if somebody came into my life and could fit themselves in, and I mean that's what we want. You don't want anyone to, like you said, imbalance you, force you to actually not do what you really love to do, but can just kind of fit themselves into your life. I mean, that's molding somebody else to doing something that they're not familiar with. And so it's like it's a give and take kind of thing. Are you willing to mold yourself, or do you want someone to fit in? And when someone can fit into where your life is and what you're doing, of course you'll jump on that opportunity. But I think it's just like dating is just such a gray area. It's just, you're willing to do certain things for some people, you're willing not to do something for some other people. You know, I was willing, when I was dating somebody in Baltimore, I was willing to, work on Saturdays just so I could have Fridays off, just so that I
Mm,
could, because they needed that. And it's like, but I didn't mind it because I knew that they would do the same for me. But when
gotcha.
it's not done the other way around, you're like, why am I doing this? And, again, when I think one of the things that I have been doing is I've been kind of replacing work with the things that I would like to do, and that's dating. I,
Mm,
I, I stay at work until probably 8, 9 o'clock at night, and I'm there at 8 in the morning. And you have to kind of wonder. And I travel, it takes me an hour to get there, hour to come back. And it's only recently that I had to tell myself, I know why I'm single. I exactly know why I'm single because I always am working. When I get
Mm.
off, everyone's like, you want to go to happy hour? I'm like, oh, no, I have this patient. I have to do this paperwork. I'm replacing that. And I think that's sometimes when we get engulfed in our purpose, our thing that we like to do, or something that consumes us, we tend to forget about the outside world. I mean, I can literally do this Monday through Friday and not blink an eye and not realize. I mean, I feel like the other day I blinked and I'm like, oh, I'm 40. All right. What happened? Like something, did I miss an error? Like, I'm single, wait, I don't have children. So where did I miss? But it's because it has been my purpose. It's something that, like, I have this thing in my head where I'm like, this is my goal. This is what I've been
Yeah.
fighting for. Why would I let anyone come in and just dismantle all of that? It's
Mm.
not only for me, it's because my parents have done so much for me, my family. I mean, like I said, I went to a Caribbean school. I was away 3 months at a time out of the year, come home for a week. And, I did it because for me, but I did it for my family too. To watch my parents tell me how proud I am for, my family to go, oh, that she's a doctor. It's a pleasing type thing. But again, you have to come back to finding yourself. You have to come back to, what you're willing and not willing to do. So, yeah, I probably could date somebody in the medical field. It probably would not be that bad. But of course, there are other people I would love to date only because of, like, learning from
Mhm.
somebody, learning to know what they think and how their job is. I mean, there's so many different things that people do. I mean, if COVID hasn't taught us that there are a lot of creative people in this world, I mean, there are things that people do, and it's like wow. So
No,
definitely,
that's definitely true,
yeah.
and I think that you know, um, I guess one question. Well, first of all, where would you prioritize it? Like as far as dating and finding somebody, because I say that to say I always push people finding and discovering their purpose. And
Okay.
the reason I do that is because purpose is tied to self-identity. A lot of times the toxic dating cycles that I observe have to do with a fractured sense of identity, right? So
Hmm.
um that so if your identity is fractured, 9 times out of 10, if you date somebody, you're looking to fill the void up,
Yeah.
but the problem is, if it's somebody toxic, they're going to implant toxicity into who you are and what your role is and what you're supposed to do. That's why when that enmeshment and codependency stuff happens, a lot of times people leave relationships and don't know who they are anymore. They don't know
Right.
what they like, what they want
Right.
to do. And so there's so many, and that's not even to mention the heartbreak of it. So there's so many pieces to pick up. That's why I
Yeah.
say, you know,
Yeah.
being single is advantageous for a lot of reasons. And although relationships are great, the wrong ones are devastating. So it's like,
Horrible.
let's make sure that we are pieced up, as whole as possible, growth focused, but mostly, you know, knowing and having that self discovery to know, like, okay, what drives us, right? Because then it goes to your earlier point where if I know I am this, I love this, this is derived from who I am, all of my ingredients, all of my upbringing, situations, childhood, everything I am is this,
Right. Right.
then when I choose somebody, I have a built-in metric. So if
Yeah.
they come in and are the antithesis to who I am and what I do, then you know that's a clear no. And
Hmm.
that's one of the best things you can have in dating. Because some people get into, I don't know, lowering standards, maybe possibly dating for potential 30%. It's better than the last one. No, you want a yes or no. You don't want to go
Right.
50 dates in, 12
Yep.
months in,
Yes.
with maybe possibly. You want to know as soon as possible.
Right.
So that's a clear, it becomes its own filter.
Yes.
And like you mentioned, okay, can you fit into this? And now, mind you, there may be a little bit of adjustments because, it may not be a super clean fit, but if that person supports what you do if they are, if the points that make you bend a little bit are only to support you. Meaning, if you met somebody and they jumped in and fit well in your life, but they were an advocate of self-care, that would be helpful to you, because
Right. Of course.
when you're seeing tunnel vision and you're doing it to the detriment of sleep and all this other, they can kind of, hey, let's log off. How about we do that?
Right.
How about, let me do the massage, let me do the bath, let me get in here and be your alarm system so you don't run the
Right.
train off the rails. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly. Yeah.
Now that situation would be great. And
Right.
to couple that, again, you'd be learning each other, maybe different professions, things like that, and the conversation would be good. But that person would not want to come in and, knock the tables down and change you,
Right.
or devalue your purpose, and but would come in support of the purpose, but the you that the purpose comes from more than anything. And then so anything that they would do would be in your overall best interest, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Of course.
So
Of course.
from from your, I guess, from where you are now, is it, because I know women get a lot of subtle and overt pressure. So do you feel like dating is a top, like, not top, I mean, obviously not bigger than your purpose, but is it up there, or is it kind of like, if it happens it happens, it is what it is, kind of thing? Like, where do you fall with that?
It's interesting because obviously the man and a woman are very different. You know,
Yeah.
it, it it was like when I went to the doctor's office and she looked at me. She's like, "Well, you're 40 and your eggs are getting older." And it was like, yeah, I'm aware of that. And it's like when you don't, when a man does not have that issue, a woman does. So I will say that growing up, when it younger, it was easier to date. And I think it had to do with the fact that I was so open to just meeting people and going out and seeing how, guys act and like how they'll treat you. And then it got to the point where you wanted to date with a purpose. And
Yeah.
then I started dating with a purpose. And like you said, you get your heart broken and you got to pick up all those pieces. And you get to that point where you say, is it really worth it? And this is why you think, is being by yourself even worth it? So honestly, it got to the point where, yeah, there was a phase in my life that I felt like dating was it. So was I on Tinder all the time? Yes. Was I paying to get on different dating sites? Yes. And it almost took everything out of me because what do women will do this all the time, and it's like the worst thing. Well, what's wrong with me? And there could be like nothing wrong with you. And I
Yeah.
think that's why there's no answer to all of this. And that's what I think is the biggest frustration. We don't have an answer to this. What's wrong with me? I mean, growing up, people would be like, oh, she's so cute. You're this and that, and you're going to find someone to marry. And then when you don't, you're like, well, what happened? Like, I thought I'm smart. I'm pretty. Like, but what's the reason? So I will say, and honestly, in the last couple, and I'm going to say months, I had to tell myself I'm not putting that as a priority anymore.
Hmm.
If I never have the opportunity to have a child, then it's going to be okay. And I have to make it okay because I can't just, you know, find somebody on the side of the street and be like, so, no, it's not going to work.
Right.
I was raised by my mom and my dad. They are still happily, very happily married. So it's like I only want that. So it's not a priority as much as it used to be because it's disappointing and it's shattering. And you start to look at yourself and reflect back and you think of all the wrongs and you forget about all that you've done, all the things that you have accomplished. I didn't go to school, get an MD, then get an MBA, then get another master's for me to decide, oh, because I don't have a man, then I
Right.
have nothing. Like, no, we're not doing that. And so I've learned to enjoy other things, breaking out of my shell is probably the biggest thing, you know. In person, I'm a very outgoing person, I love to meet people. So I do that, I attend things where I met you, I'm doing something like this I probably would never done. I have a friend of mine who I'm talking to next month, I'm learning to be part of organizations that put professionals together so I can meet other people. There's ways of inadvertently trying to date and just being
Mhm.
out there
Mhm.
and learning about people. And I think that's what my priority is. I don't want life to go by thinking that, oh, this is all I'm going to focus on. This is all I'm going to do because this is what I really want. It would be lovely. It would be so nice to meet someone, so nice to go on dates. But I mean, I do have standards, and a woman should have standards. And I think we need to get away from being afraid of having those standards. And yes, it's going to take a time. It's going to, you're not going to see anything happen. You're going to be that bridesmaid 20 million times over. I got dresses to tell you about that. But your friends find people and they get married and people have kids, and that may not be your life. And I had to tell myself that. Do I wish I did? Yes. But am I going to make that number one thing? No. So in priority, my happiness is what I love. So my happiness is going to brunch. My happiness is
There you
hanging out with
go.
friends. My friend, like doing things that I've never done before. And I'm telling you, if somebody wants to be in my life, they'll figure it out. They will.
Right.
They will.
Right. No, indeed. And that's, well, you preaching to the choir, so
Yeah, right?
well said with that. Yeah. No,
You
and
know?
I love all of that. And I think that, for me, I always look at it like purpose is so fulfilling. It's such a joy and a
Yes.
positive experience and an
Yes.
aligning experience that's the type of energy that resonates and attracts the
Yes.
similar type of energy. So it I believe, and I always try to help, when it comes to people that I work with, coaching wise, or just my general audience. Like, you'll find them along purpose first,
Yes.
and when it's time, you'll connect with them along that line. So when you
Right.
do things purpose oriented, your vibration is so high that you'll connect with somebody who vibrates on a similar level. But when you're
Very much
focused
so.
on it, you're hyper focused on it, you're thinking about it, you're anxious about it, you're worried about if it doesn't happen, you're and the time, the biological clock, the friends, the
Yes.
bridesmaids.
Yes.
So now
That
that energy
pressure.
is constricting, right? That's constricting, and that's lowering the vibration.
Yes.
And that compounded with a heavy workload and working a lot and things like that
It's not healthy.
you already know how that goes. So I
Right.
think that, you know you're definitely on the right path with it, and
Yeah.
just focusing on the energy coming out of your
Mm,
shell. That's the self-growth element, right? As you're
exactly.
growing, learning, networking, right, getting around the right energy. And if it
Right.
becomes a friendship, cool. If it becomes something more, cool. But as long as you're keeping the right energy within your field,
Yeah.
basically, you know what I'm saying?
That's true.
And that's an excellent mindset to keep.
Right. Yeah.
So as
Yeah.
as we close, you know, where can people find you? Is there anything you want people to know about? How can they support the organization? Let people know what they need to do.
So, like I said, I am part of an organization named Chai. We are online. Unfortunately, due to COVID, there's a lot of things that we're not able to do. This past December, we did have a virtual holiday gala, which was amazing. We were able to raise enough money, sell paintings. Um, but if anyone wants to find me, I'm on Instagram. I wish I could say that I'm going to like come out in a bang, which I will one day, but I really want to focus on being a very big advocate for especially medical students and people in the healthcare field. One of the things that I've learned through COVID is that they say that there's not enough physicians out there, and there are so many
Mhm.
of us. And so, um, being able to actually find residency placements because there are not enough of them. um, that's something that I've been kind of thinking about starting. I know that you started something on Clubhouse, so I'm hoping to kind of tap into that. But it's an important thing to me because, like I said, healthcare is like something that can take anybody out. And so it is important. It is the front line of everything. And I think we've all been tested to our fullest when it came to COVID. So definitely on Facebook, you can find me at Haitian Queen Francois. You can find me on Instagram. And if anything, I'm always posting something about some health or even working out all the time. So, you know, I'm learning about self-care. I'm learning about good energy, and I'm learning about myself. And I think that's something that, is a big stepping stone for me. So definitely enjoyed being on here though today. It was good talks. Good talks, Marcus. Good talks.
Good.
It was
Great.
good. It
Yeah,
was
no,
good.
likewise. Great energy. It
Yes.
would be longer if I had more battery. I just saw the
I,
signal. I'm trying to
it's
make sure
okay.
we don't
Right,
get shot.
exactly. You're good.
Yeah.
You're good. But it
Um,
was good.
man, thank you for coming
Thank
through.
you.
Thank you for joining. Thank you for just the conversation and the insight, because I think a lot of people are going to gain in many different ways, just
Right.
from what you were able to bring to light, your personal, the connection to the organization, your research, your dedication to the field,
Right.
and some of the challenges in dating, but also in residency and things like that. You'd be surprised how many people are going through similar stuff, trying to
I
figure out
can't
how to
wait to
fit
connect with
how to
them.
fit people in, all of
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you again,
Thank
for
you.
coming through. And say your Instagram one more time.
It is Dr. Haitian Queen. Instagram, Dr. Haitian Queen. DR Haitian Queen.
All right. So good night
Yeah.
to
Good
all of you
night.
watching. Good night to you as well. And tune in tomorrow night. Be sure to follow at Happiness Decoded 101.
Yes.
And if you're watching right here on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and share the broadcast. Thanks for watching.
Wonderful. See ya.